Hi, I'm Donovan Mariamat. I have the privilege to interview Alice Hermanson. We're going to hear about her testimony, her favorite verse, and her favorite hymn. Okay, Alice, tell us about your testimony.
Well, Donovan, there's a Christian songwriter, Stuart Hamlin, who wrote a song called Until Then. And the words began, "My heart can sing when I pause to remember, and I can rejoice in remembering the fact that I accepted Jesus as my Savior as a 7 or 8 year old in a Sunday school class. After a teacher had given a lesson, she asked if anyone would like to ask Jesus into their heart, and I responded, and she prayed with me. And that was about 75 years ago. And I have tried to be faithful in my testimony, in living my life for Jesus in that length of time. Sunday school was an important part of my life. And my parents were strong, loving Christians, and they always told me that it was important to have Jesus. And after I asked Jesus in my heart, it was a day of rejoicing. And it gave, and it still gives me, a sense of security and belonging to a family of God and being involved with people in His work. And there were a few things that I remember going to Sunday school. And you have to remember this was in the early 1940s. And I went to Sunday school in a utility trailer pulled behind an old big Buick sedan. And there were about 15 or 20 of us that were picked up along the road to go to Sunday school. Even though my parents went, I felt left out because I didn't get to go with all of the other kids. So they took me in the trailer. And that was taken by an Aunt Emma and an Uncle Henry. And they were very active members of our church. And they provided many hours of pleasure for the children in our Sunday school, which then, having asked Jesus in my heart, I had to continue to live my life as I grew older. And I always went to vacation Bible school. We had release time where we had an hour a week that we could go to church and study and miss school. Mm-hmm. So, of course, that always was an increasing thing to keep in mind because you were going to miss an hour of something you didn't want to do. We had Youth for Christ, Christian Endeavor, and Bible quiz teams. These all were things that encouraged me to keep my faith and walk with God. And my friends were all encouraging, and we've had a great time in fellowship one with another in these activities. In my life, music played a big part, and we spent Sunday afternoons around the piano after church. Family and friends would gather. I was the church pianist at the age of 12. And when I was 14, I was asked to be an accompanist for a traveling gospel team. And we traveled throughout California and Arizona and Nevada on weekends. And during the summer, we went to the Indian reservations in Arizona. And we conducted Bible school programs for the kids then. And so I was always involved. I went to Westmont College. Go Warriors. And so that gave me the ability to become a teacher. And so for 30 years, I taught in Christian schools. Okay. And I taught those that are the ones who often are called the unlovable, the wonderful junior hires. But I still love them to this day. They're a great age and group to work with. And that's where today, junior hires need to be encouraged to walk faithfully and given opportunities to do things that will encourage them to continue in their daily life with God. I met my husband on a blind date in Maryland, and he was in the military, and I was there on vacation. Okay. And we were married 2 years later. And we have been always, until the last few years, very active within our church and doing things there. God blessed us with a beautiful daughter and a handsome son. And our son just turned 60 this last week. We were blessed with a very happy home, a home with no problems. We never experienced any unsurmountable problems until one day, when our daughter was 15, we were told, your daughter has a very rare form of leukemia, and we have to begin treatments tonight. So we did that, and we went through a period of time where many things were unknown. Ultimately, she was a bone marrow transplant patient at the City of Hope. Her brother was her donor. 6 weeks after the transplant, her brother, our son, Stephen, was involved in an accident that left him partially paralyzed. And we had to then decide a plan for the future and what we would do. That was a very difficult time that God gave us to endure. My reaction was, God, I don't know what to do. I can't pray. I can't fathom life. What is it you have for us to learn? And then we were surrounded by a family of faith. Prayers were unsurmountable. There were people across the United States praying, and we knew that. And ultimately, after her bone marrow transplant, she lived 12 months, and God took her home. Our son regained the use of all of his functions except his left arm. God has given him the ability to go on and live his life. He was on the U.S. Paralympic cycling team for the Olympics in Atlanta. He has done the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii 2 times. And he's currently a Superior Court judge in Northern California.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So during that time when all of a sudden these medical issues all came all at once, and it was like a tsunami of trouble, did you have doubts or did you doubt God's goodness? And if you did, what did you do to work through that?
I never doubted God's goodness. I always knew that God was in control. I didn't question why, but I had a difficult time praying because I couldn't focus on probably things as I should have. But we know that God gives us what we can handle. And I believe that lives were saved because of the testimonies of our children and as well as the lives that we have led.
So through all these trials, what's a way that you saw God working in your life?
God worked in our lives in so many ways, and not only just us, but our entire family and many of our friends. Almost a year after Catherine had her transplant, her kidneys failed, and she was placed on dialysis. And then shortly thereafter, we were told that her leukemia had returned. 1 week later, God took her to be his special angel. Have we had more trials and sorrows? Yes, we have. Has God answered our prayers? Yes, but not always the way we would want them to be. No is an answer. And we have had to learn that as well. We continue to trust him on a daily basis for our strength and wisdom as we walk this awesome journey of life. God is so good, and his love endures forever.
During these times, did you have a verse or a passage that's grounded you and ever since?
When my husband and I were married in 1960, we chose as our verse for our lives together, love always protects, love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. That's from 1 Corinthians 13:7. And that was a verse that helped us many, many times because we knew that God's love was surrounding us. And to this day, God's love surrounds us in everything that we do.
All right, Alice, what's your favorite hymn?
Donovan, that's really hard to really hone in on one because music has been so important to me through my entire life. But Stuart Hamblin wrote the song Until Then. My heart can sing when I pause to remember. A heartache here is but a stepping stone. Along a trail that's winding always upward, this troubled world is not my final home. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy, I'll carry on until the day my eyes behold the city, until the day God calls me home.